So most people struggle to manage a single unit, yet you're managing over 1,000 units from Spain.
You want to find the next one soon after you close your first one. In fact, you really want to be underwriting as you're going, right? You close the deal, you take a breath, and all of a sudden you're like, crap, I haven't been underwriting anything. You kind of forget about that part of the business because you're so in it. This is early on.
How are you managing 1,000 units in America from Spain?
We all get the same 24 hours. So why is it that some people build so much more with them? I'm Brian Coons, and this is the Builder Nation podcast, where we talk to top performers, entrepreneurs, and visionaries to uncover the architecture of a meaningful and fulfilling life. Let's get into it.
Welcome to another episode of the Builder Nation podcast. Today we have Eric Nelson. He is a manager of over 1,000 units across multiple markets. He is still at the same time a coach for multiple other people. So most people struggle to manage a single unit, yet you're managing over 1,000 units from Spain. What was the first system or hire that you made to make you feel like you're actually running a company?
Oh man, that's such a good question. So I think, all right, we can go backwards first as to how I came into this. But to answer your question, the first hire, we grew like organically. Like I didn't really grow. Again, I was more reactive than looking forward. And that's something that your audience could take away from me, right? Like be prepared for the future would be a better way to do it than I did. So I was kind of like reactive. So when I first started in the multifamily, I just met a guy in a mastermind who was kind of looking for the same thing. We worked together to find our first deal. And so we just partnered up basically. So the two of us were like, all right, cool. We found this multifamily deal in Tulsa and we kind of went for it. Even right after closing, we realized, okay, neither one of us is all that detailed and all that great at management. So, and also beyond that, like you want to find the next one soon after you close your first one. In fact, you really want to be underwriting as you're going, right?
Why is
I
that?
met well, I think, it just depends on your style. Like I won't say everyone should be that way, but I think if you're looking to scale, a lot of times what happens is like people will find like a multifamily deal, right? They'll get it under contract. And then it takes about 90 to 100 days to close a multifamily property. Sometimes a little more depending on debt. So you have this like kind of long way to, yes, we got one, we got a contract, even accepted LOI to contract. Cause there's kind of, that's in the commercial world, an LOI is a letter of intent. You just send it in, you say, here's what I'm planning to do. There's non-binding, there's not a contract, right? In the residential world, you send a contract. I mean, you guys sign it, you're locked in. In the commercial world, you just send this letter that says, I'm going to buy this for this. Anyway, so you have this long runway, let's say 100 days, but leading up to that runway, all you're doing is the due diligence, right? Because you're kind of running fast, you're getting lending set up, you're doing all this stuff, and you kind of forget that like acquisitions is still important. So let's say you go the whole 100 days, like, whew, man, that was a race. And it is. It's a race to the finish. You close the deal, you take a breath, and all of a sudden you're like, crap, I haven't been underwriting anything. You kind of forget about that part of the business because you're so in it. This is early on. So I was like, okay, well, me and John was my first partner. Me and John are doing all this DD, due diligence, and we're like, well, we're not underwriting anything. We don't have time for that. So we need another partner. So I actually paid my current partner, Shane, hourly to underwrite it. Again, we met at a meetup. So like people ask you where you find your partners. I think masterminds, meetups, those kind of places, that's where you're going to find people. They're all thinking the same thing you are, and every major city has great meetups. So I met him at a meetup and I was like, man, you seem super sharp. We met a few times. I was like, would you be interested in doing some underwriting? He's like, yeah, I'd love to like kind of learn multifamily. And so he was doing underwriting for super cheap for us, really to kind of learn. And I was like, this is amazing because this guy's really great at underwriting, really good guy. Really appreciate what he's doing, basically. So he was underwriting leading into the second deal. And so we had another deal right on the tail of the first one. So I closed that and I was like, you know what, dude, this guy's so awesome. We get along so well. Let's just partner on this one. So then there was 3 partners on the second deal. Then as we have 2 deals and we're kind of running this whole thing, we're like, oh man, we don't really manage this well because we're out chasing deals or I'm talking to brokers, Shane's underwriting. So we kind of need one more person. And that kind of how things just happen. It was more like we have a need for something. So I filled that hole. If you listen to this podcast or if you listen to multifamily podcasts, it almost might be better to say, hey, here are the 3 or 4 people you need to be really successful in multifamily. Start looking for those people now. And before that, even figure out what it is that you're really great at. So I say this all the time, like find your superpower, find the thing that you're amazing at, then find the things you're not great at or don't like doing and find people who are great at that. And there's your partner. You have to align in values, you have to get along, you have to trust each other, all those things. But the skill sets don't want to align. You want them to actually be opposite for your partner. So very long answer to say, like, I did it reactionary and not really like planning looking forward.
No, it's funny that you say that though, because like just from a business architecture standpoint, you get really, you get a bunch of leads in, right? In marketing, you do a really good job at marketing, which is essentially like searching for the deal. And then you get really busy with all of the people coming in. And so you spend, the next 30 days on sales. And then there's a lag where you're like, okay, well, now I just got through all those, but I wasn't still focused on the marketing. And now I have to restart that. So you literally are describing just the same exact structure as like an actual business. And so that's kind of, it sounds like that's a little bit of what you treated it as, was you actually treated it like a business. You didn't just treat it as like a one-off deal. And now you're, the small time investor that you're like, all right, cool. Like now I'm just like in my little space for a while being an investor. You were like, no, like this is a machine. Like it's a conveyor belt. It needs to continue on.
Exactly right. And I mean, if you look at it like through marketing and sales lens, I mean, the marketing, so to speak, was you reaching out to brokers. So marketing in multifamily looks a little different. The brokers hold all the cards, for better or worse. It just is what it is. People always ask me, can you do mailers? Can you cold call? I'm like, you can, and I've tried it, but trust me, the brokers are the way to go. So you're calling brokers. That is kind of your marketing. You're selling yourself. You're like, hey, I can close deals. I know how to do real estate. You're just like, it's sales and marketing all in one. That's kind of your leads, so to speak. You're trying to get them to email you deals before the market sees it. That's really the name of the game. It takes time to get there, but even if you're looking at on-market deals right now as we're talking, this is October of 25, the multifamily market's really hot. The residential market's cooled off, at least in most parts of the US. The commercial market's super hot. So right now we're seeing deals like crazy. So even if you're looking at on-market deals, there's a lot to be had out there right now. So that's kind of your marketing scheme. Then the sales scheme is, what can you pay for that property without overpaying, but still being competitive, right? So like, where are you putting yourself in there? And then again, the sales skills come in where it's like, you may not be the highest offer, but if you position yourself to be, one, good to work with, and two, have the ability to close, that's the most important thing to all brokers and sellers. If you're selling a property for $5 million and someone says, I'll give you $5 million, but I'm brand new and I don't really know what I'm doing. Someone says, I'll give you 4.9, but I've done 50 of these and I'll close it for sure. You're going to choose that person. So it's kind of a balance of selling yourself and having the lead. So yeah, that's exactly right, man. I was looking at it like, I don't want to buy one. Like, we want to turn this. We want to turn this into a real business.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So if you had to go back from the start, right, when you kind of were at the beginning, if you could redo the first 2 years, what was a bottleneck that you would have solved earlier?
I think underwriting tends to become a bottleneck for most people. And so I will say, actually, that one I did solve. For most people, that is the true bottleneck. What happens is you get a bunch of deals, you have this excitement, you underwrite 20, you send maybe 1 or 2 LOIs, you don't get the deal, and all of a sudden you're like, this is hard, I quit. But if you found someone who loves underwriting and you don't like it that much, you can send them the underwriting. There's usually the bottleneck, because deals are out there. It's just identifying the deal that works for you, and what you can pay for is usually the bottleneck. So I will say, I don't know that I really had that issue, so to speak, right away. The other bottleneck I would say is asset management. So asset management is a skill that's highly underrated. It takes a lot of effort. So you're managing the manager. So like, if people listening to this don't know what it is, a property manager, they do like leasing, they deal with like tenants, they deal with evictions, they deal with collections, all the on-property stuff that's really hard. They do that. I don't do that. It's not my business. I don't like to do that stuff. I have before owning rental, but property manage a very specific business. So in our business, we hire them. And then what we do is we manage the manager, because we're looking at a different level. We're looking at, like, some people call an asset manager the coach of a football team. The property manager is the quarterback. They're the one running the play. They're the one in the grind. They're doing it. The coach is the one calling the plays. They see the big picture of the game and they're managing the game. It's kind of like that. So it's an underrated skill. So we hired a girl named Bonnie who's really outstanding, but it took us too long probably to find an asset manager. So to answer the question, even though I just went in circles, I'd probably find an asset manager early on if that's not your skill set, because you need to watch budgets. You need to watch, the renovation timeline, things like that. How are you doing versus how you projected, all that stuff. So that's probably the bottleneck I'd solve early.
Yeah, that's so good. But yeah, the asset management, it's very similar in like the development space, where a lot of people want to just hire the architect or they want to hire the design build firm and they just think they're done. But it's like, no one's going to own the project. No one can replace you as the owner in that process. And so a lot of people, that's one of the big things I push on people is like, if you can't do it, you have to hire the person who's actually going to be herding the cats, managing the managers, and getting everyone to hey, like you said you were going to have this done on Tuesday and it's now Friday. Like what are we doing? So I think that makes a ton of sense. That's great. So how do you think being an engineer either helped or hurt you growing to 1,000 units?
Say, I'm not a traditional engineer. So I'm the first person to admit school was really hard for me. Like I did well in high school because I was good at math. And so people were like, hey, you should be an engineer. You're good at math. And really that's what pushed me there. When I got to college, I looked around the room and I was like, I am no longer nearly the smartest person in this room. In fact, I'm like bottom 5%. So I struggled my way through. So I will say I'm not like the traditional engineer in the sense that I'm very, very number oriented or very detailed. I'm more of a people person who just happens to be able to do math. So the hindrance is that I'm not the smartest person in the room. And there's other people who are way, way smarter than me. The bonus is I learned how to work really hard. And I also learned how to communicate really well. So like if I had to go, like basically to answer the question, I can do the underwriting. I just don't love it. Right. Like, so I wouldn't like be the number one underwriter, but the opposite is true. Like I can understand the numbers, but my real strength is speaking to people. And so it helped me in some sense just because it helped me like learn how to grind. I was the one in the library at midnight when the other smarter people were done at 5. I was just like, well, I got to figure this out because they get it, but I don't yet.
Yeah.
And so I think it kind of had a double-edged sword. The other thing I'll say is I did own an engineering company before I switched. And owning a company means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And of course, every company is different. But being able to be the person that everyone looks to at the end of the day, that's a challenge, right? So if you become an entrepreneur, and especially if you have employees or people work with you, and you're the one that's kind of like the end all be all, that's an uncomfortable seat at first. And so that was the other thing I took away from being an engineer was just being a business owner, just being like, hey, if something goes wrong, I'm the one to blame. Like it all comes to me. It is what it is. We'll move and we'll move on, right? Like I don't want people to feel like well, like the buck stops here. I mean, that's the saying, right? That's how I felt. So that's the other thing I took away from being an engineer.
Interesting. So you actually own the business. Did you work at any point like for another company as an
Yeah, for
engineer?
sure. And in engineering, you kind of have to, right? Like you don't really learn engineering in school. Like any good engineer will tell you that. You learn how to solve a bunch of problems. But engineering is kind of like you got to work for someone. And the way that the licensing works, you have to work under someone for 4 years before you can then even get your license. So yeah, I worked for a handful of folks along the way. I took a break. My wife and I drove a car from Colorado to Patagonia, and it took us a year. Like we lived in a little camper. So that's a whole side story. But after I got my license, we took some time off. And it was during that trip that I decided, you know what, like, I don't really want to work for anybody. And it wasn't like my boss was bad. He was a great guy. I was just ready to start a business after some time off and some clarity of thinking. So I did, yeah. And then when I came home, we just started this business. And it was an interesting time to start a business because we were penniless, man. We like spent all of our money, flew home, and I'm like, I want to start a business. So that's a whole separate story. But yes, I did own the company for a handful of years.
Okay. What do you think was scarier, your first multifamily deal or quitting your job and going into this business?
I think my first sixplex was the scariest moment of my entire career. So
Why?
we bought a sixplex for $1 million, and it was like our third property ever. And it was an owner financing deal. That's again a very long, cool story. I leveraged to the max. I convinced the seller that he would hold 97% of the property. So we paid $1 million. He was holding 970. And so we had a $30,000 down payment. And so it's a pretty risky move. I mean, that's not something I suggest unless you know there's value there, which is the reason I did the deal. I knew the property was worth more than $1 million. So we were getting a deal. So it was like true loan to value was okay. But man, I remember laying awake, like looking at the ceiling, like I'm about to take on $1 million of debt. I don't really know what I'm doing. That was a pretty scary moment, more so than really any other thing. Like starting the engineering company, we were broke anyway. I had nothing to lose. I had no kids. So that was okay. Starting multifamily was challenging only because we were taking on investors. When you take on investor money, it's really, really stressful. At least for me. Like I want to treat people's money even more valuable than my own. So that's the most stressful piece of doing syndication work. Like when you bring in investors, it's incredibly stressful because you really want to treat their money well. You take the stress away by being by buying right and underwriting conservatively and all those things, but it is stressful. Like at the end of the day, you want to do right by your investors.
How do you take care of your investors?
I mean, there's like levels of take care, right? Like when someone invests with us, we send them a care package and we just thank them, right? Like we send them some really cool stuff. And then beyond that, we send a monthly update. I think the way that we take care of our investors, and the honest truth is we're extremely, extremely honest. So we tell them the truth no matter what. So I have been part of groups where we're talking about multifamily, like, yeah, the investors don't really need to know. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that at all, right? Investors need to know everything. Like they need to know if the deal's going well, on target, not on target. So the best thing you can do for them is just to be really honest. Like there are deals that don't go as well as you expect. It's just the nature of the business. There's deals that crush way better than you ever thought. You're like the investor who's in that one that's doing not as great. They deserve to know just as much as anyone else. So to say, here's what we're doing to correct this. Here's what's gone wrong. Some of it's our fault. Some of it's the market's fault. Here's what we're going to do to get it better, right? Like that communication is the best way to take care of people. If you're going to lose, we haven't lost any investor money. So I'm really, really proud of that. Never had a capital call, never lost money to date. But if you're not going to make the return that you thought you would, the better thing you can do is just be honest. Like, hey, we promised you 15% IRR. This is going to be more like 12 probably, or 11, I wish it was better, but it's not. And most investors are like, cool. Like, it comes with risk. The other thing you can do is be very honest up front. Be like, all right, you're investing in a multifamily syndication. This is just as risky as investing in the stock market. Maybe not just as, but it has risk involved, right? With upside comes the potential for downside. So just being honest like that, I think is the best way to take care of people.
Yeah. No, I think that's so huge. And that's something that I notice as a principle with a lot of people that have raised a good amount of money is they're just like, you just have to communicate. I equate it to being in a relationship. It's like you can do a lot of shit as a spouse, as a significant other, but as long as you're communicating it, like you guys can get through it. And that seems to be kind of like the foundational piece that everyone says is just talk to them. And most of the people, like, they're still, at the end of the day, as long as you're a moral person and you're executing even somewhat at a high level, you probably are still getting a better return than you get anywhere else.
Yeah, but let's say even you don't, right? Let's say that you got your money back. Let's say that like a deal went somewhat sour and all you invested 50 grand and 3 years later you got your 50 grand back. Like you'd think most people would be mad and maybe they're frustrated, but along the way, if you're saying, yeah, man, this one's not going that well. I'm sorry, we have to pause distributions for X, Y, and Z. Ooh, actually the market took a turn. Ooh, our rate climbed. I'm really sorry. I wish I could get you a better return. This hasn't happened to us, luckily, but let's say you give them their 50 grand back. Most people are like, I rolled the dice, and it's not like I'm mad at you. I'm frustrated with the market because you were honest the whole way. I think it's the way to be. And I have found most investors to be really understanding. I mean, even in a situation where you pause distributions, you're like, we got to do what's right for the business. Most people are like, cool. Bummer I'm not getting that check, but I also want the business to succeed, right? So I totally agree with you, man.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where if you're being a good fiduciary of their money, you are not going to raise more money than they're okay losing. So that distribution check is not what's putting food on the table.
Hey guys, if you're a business owner, high income earner, or investor who's been thinking about getting into real estate development but don't have the time to manage the process, this is for you. My company partners with people like you to help unlock the potential of your properties or even source and manage new small scale development projects. We manage hundreds of ADUs and infill development projects across Southern California, and our team knows how to simplify the process so you can benefit from the upside without managing contractors, permits, or design headaches. Whether you want to develop your own property, explore ways to offset taxes, or just learn how the development model works, head to thebuildernation.com/partner. That's thebuildernation.com/partner and see how we can help you build more with the same 24 hours. Now back to the show.
Totally. And that's the other thing is, to be honest, like I've turned several investors away because they use the language something to the effect of, I've saved up this 50 grand or 25 grand. Ours is a minimum of 25. So like someone says, I saved this 25, I'm ready to invest. I'm like, all right, well, do you have a very big safety net beyond that 25? And if the answer is no, like, I'm so sorry, this is not a good investment for you. What I'd encourage you to do is invest a smaller number in like an S&P 500 or some other REIT maybe that takes a smaller number. But like, I don't want this to be your savings. I don't want this to be your thing to fall back on because it's illiquid and there is risk. So I love what you just said, man. Like if they're willing, like no one's willing to lose 50 grand, but if they're willing to invest it and they have a safety net behind it, okay, now we're talking. Like now, yes, this is part of your portfolio. And yeah, generally speaking, we get better returns in the stock market. So it's just a bonus.
Yeah. No, I love that. So obviously you've grown very, very significantly to over 1,000 units. So, most operators barely they struggle to manage 10 doors a lot of the times. What is your command center? What dashboard runs the empire?
We use monday.com. We used Asana for a while, but Monday kind of just tracks basically each property and what we're doing and the kind of the things that we need to be doing. It's interesting though, like we're not terribly sophisticated. Sometimes what I'll say is a tool is only as good as a tool that you will use. So we used Asana for a while, but we didn't use it very well. Like it's a really powerful tool, but we weren't using it, right? So like if you have a tool, I mean, even if it's a spreadsheet, whatever it is that if you're listening, whatever works for your team that you guys are using, that's the tool to use. There's all kinds of fancy software, but if your team doesn't use it, it's worthless. So for us, it's Monday. We actually simply track, like we don't track all that much, but it is a nice tool to have. Really the command center, so to speak, is our weekly meeting. So we have a weekly meeting. We have a bi-weekly meeting for every property. They're usually super quick, honestly, the meetings are. And then we have a weekly meeting as a team. And we basically say, let's run through as fast as we can every property, what's happening, what's good, what's bad, what needs to be changed. And then the way that we work is Bonnie's our lead asset manager, but there are some properties where we like assign somebody to it. Like there's one in Tulsa that's just like an unbelievable deal. It'll be like a 40% IRR. It's just an insane deal. And everything just seems to go right. So she doesn't really need to have her hands in that. So like our partner, Shane, he just runs that deal because it takes him like 5 minutes a week because it's just this is a property that sings for some reason. I take care of the same thing that doesn't really require all that much effort. So we have kind of a unique system where we're trying to take a load off of Bonnie where we can, and then she sort of runs the ship when it comes to day-to-day stuff. I will say like this might sound bad, but it's the truth. Once you own a property and you've done, let's say the first 5 months of renovations, it doesn't take that much time as long as you have a good property manager. So we meet, like I said, bi-weekly for every property. I review the books on every property every month, and that takes time. But like the meetings are 12 minutes usually. Like, all right, where's the vacancy rate right now? Where are we projected versus where we are? How much do we expect to collect this month? There's like a handful of KPIs we go through really quickly. And they're like, all right, what do you need from us? Okay, cool. We need to fix X, Y, and Z. Let's do it. Or, yeah, no, we don't really need that. It's a nice to have, not a need to have. And then we love community events. So we love like pizza parties and like door decorating things. And we're trying to create a community. So really that's what we focus on like hugely. We want to have at least one a month. And so we push really hard for all of our property managers to do that. Just to give an example. So the command center is kind of like all over the place, so long as we are like tracking where we're headed on each property.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think that's really important. Like the cadence of just meeting on a regular basis, I think brings light to a lot of things that I think that when things get tough for business owners and for people that have a smaller team, it's easy to skip the meeting, or it's easy to just take a break or just kind of, deal with your piece and whatever. And yeah, that leads to, I think, just extended timelines, and everything just starts to compound from that. So I think that having the meetings, is one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, and the times when things are tough are the most important time to have a meeting, in my opinion. Like things are going not well, you guys need to meet. You guys need to talk about it and figure out what you're going to do. If things are going well, that would be the day to skip the meeting.
Exactly.
That's just my view.
So how do you structure communication so nothing gets lost between you, the asset managers, property managers, and everyone else on the team?
I guess it depends on exactly what we're talking about. Communication between us and the property manager. So we have 3 markets. So basically we have 3 different property managers, and we're never going to sway from those markets, at least for the foreseeable future, because our managers are so good. But all 3 of those managers have a different style of communication, and that's fine for me. We just need to know how that communication happens. Most communication has happened on email or on those calls. If something's urgent, yeah, we'll text and stuff. We don't really have like a platform. Like we don't use Slack or we don't use anything like that because I think things kind of get lost in the weeds. So most of our communication is done over email or on the phone or on the calls for each property, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of like email software or anything to kind of organize?
No, it's funny that you asked me these questions. I probably could, but again, I don't think I'd use the tool.
Okay.
I have an assistant, like an executive assistant that's like the most unbelievably best hire on the planet. She's so good. So she helps me with my email. So she'll go through my email basically at least once a day, say, hey, you need to respond to this one. And she'll kind of clean out some stuff for me. So that's incredibly helpful. That's like an email organizer that I have to pay for, but she does 5 trillion times more than that. I'm just saying that's one piece of it. So that's really helpful for me personally. For everyone else, I think if there was an email organizer tool out there, that'd be great. I see these AI tools that kind of put together some drafts and stuff for you. It might be helpful. I haven't used it yet.
Yeah. There's one that I use called Front. It's basically, it doesn't do anything, like it doesn't filter through the emails or anything like that. But what it does is it just creates a much more clear view of everything. And it's much
I'm like,
easier to kind of
okay.
clean out your inbox and things like that. You can snooze things. So if you ever used it, like that one has
I'm
been
gonna take a
super
note.
helpful
Yeah,
for
that
me.
sounds nice. Yeah.
And yeah, I like what you said, because for me, that's actually like something that I very recently implemented was my assistant. She will actually go through my emails twice a day and just clear out all the spam, anything that she's already like tracking on that she's working on. And so all I have in there at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, if I happen to like going through stuff at night, is literally just the emails that need my direct input. And she'll actually like draft the email for me in it, and then I can take over the email. That's what one of the things that Front does really nicely. And that's like, I think you're saying it's one of the most important things, one of the best first tasks to take off your plate in this space, because you literally like half the job is just email management.
I was just going to say, you waste so much time on email. So I think if you can pull some of that back, I will say the one thing I've done is people know this about me. I'm pretty allergic to Zoom calls. Like that's the language I use. So if someone, because you hear this all the time, I bet you probably get the same. I probably get at least one person per day say, want to jump on a call. Yeah, like, and I don't want to be a jerk because, like, I do love talking to people. That's genuine. If there's a real reason for the call, 100%. If you're new or you have questions or any of that, like, I want to be super helpful. But if it's like, try to give a good example, be like, hey, someone was talking about painting the doors on X property. Want to jump on a call and talk about it? I'm just like, no, we don't need to talk about that on a
No.
call. Just like email me or text me so I can get you a really, really fast answer. And it sounds like I'm being a jerk, but you just get so much calls and so many emails that I have been pretty diligent about. This came from a coach. A coach of mine was like, you have to like guard your time, because the busier you get, the more your time wants, people want it from you. You have to be willing to like say no. And that was hard for me, because I do like helping people, but eventually you get to the point where like, nah, I can't jump on a call, but just like shoot me an email and get you a response right away. Just an
Yeah.
example.
I love that, because I remember hearing this one time. Ask yourself every time, can this meeting be an email? Can this email be a phone call? Can this phone call be a text message? And you just kind of always, I think as a business owner, you start to see this as like your time becomes more and more valuable, and not from the perspective of, oh, I'm just, inherently more valuable, but your time has a direct compensation value to your team. And so the more time you spend not on high dollar per hour tasks, the more that they're negatively affected. So it's actually like something to help out your team that I'm currently learning too.
Yeah, part of it too. I mean, we'll probably get into this, but like part of it is life balance, right?
Yeah.
Like, part of my life as we know it right now is to cut out as many meetings as I can. My goal for this year is to spend as much time as I possibly can traveling with my kids. And so to do that, like I've been pretty ruthless about my calendar. Just like, here's the times I can talk and the rest I can't. And I'm sorry. Like if it's urgent, of course I will, right? Like things come up that you must get on a call, and I don't want to be that like absentee owner. But if it's just a call or like a podcast like this, like you just say, here's the dates I can do, or here's the times I can do. And usually people are very like, cool, like that's your calendar, right? So it becomes like you're not really a jerk if you just like clear about your boundaries. Here's the times I can talk and that's it, It becomes very nice. I mean, that's why Calendly is such a nice tool too. Like you can just like set your stage for how you can talk, and you send your Calendly link and people can pick it. So it's not like you're being a total jerk that you won't talk to somebody, but you're just guarding the times that you can. So I think it's extremely valuable for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I actually want to get into that. So, how are you managing 1,000 units in America from Spain?
Well, the answer is a good team. Like good teammates do so much, right? Like my partner Shane lives in Spain. He and I kind of do everything together, and we're super aligned. So before I even moved, I was like, hey man, I'm thinking about moving to Spain. We're gonna be on different time zones. I don't expect like you to take on more so that I can do this with my family, but it will be weird at times when there are weird time zones. And, like, can you be willing to go to the properties to look at them instead of me? And I will give up some of the GP for you to do that. Like, and for his perspective, he's like, sweet, I can get a little bit bigger slice of equity. I live like pretty close to our markets. He's like, yeah, man, I love that. Support you. And so to answer the question, is a great team. So Bonnie lives in Colorado. My brother Ben is he's part of our team as well. He lives in Denver, and Shane lives in Houston, and I live in Barcelona. So we're kind of like all over anyway. It was interesting because I was doing this all from Colorado. We never met in person as a team. I mean, rarely. We'd meet sometimes just if someone was in town, but we were doing this remotely anyway. And so that was kind of the light bulb of like, why do I mean, I love Colorado. I love my like home, don't get me wrong, but like we wanted to do something different. And that was the light bulb of like, if I can do this from Colorado and we don't buy any property in Colorado, why can't I do this overseas? Right. And so I think the long answer is you can kind of do multifamily from anywhere. And most people that I know do. Most people in multifamily aren't necessarily buying in their backyard. So you can kind of do it from anywhere. So the answer is a great team, but that would be true if I lived in Colorado too.
Yeah. No, you said something that, you are okay giving up more equity because it allows this freedom. And that I actually like, I get asked that fairly often of, I'm starting to travel now too a little bit. I went to like Mexico for a month. I went to Bali for a month and
Nice.
things like that. And I get asked all the time about that. And, for me, I followed along that same path of it's okay to give up equity for a good team. So that way you can create the lifestyle business that you want.
Not only that, it's sort of works the other way. So this is sort of counterintuitive. The more that you give up, meaning, and that usually equates to time. So if, let's say you give up 5% of your general partner split on one deal to get back more time. What that a lot of times ends up doing, not only does it give you more balance, but it also gives you more time freedom to then go and do the next one as well. So in my case, like if I wasn't doing traveling to Oklahoma to look at a deal, it might free up 3 days for me to be underwriting or calling calls to then continue to move the ball forward. It's just going to take less time. I can make 5 calls in a day, but if I'm traveling far, that day's burned. So it's weird. Like sometimes when you're more, and I guess I would say this, almost always when you're more generous, it usually comes back. And that's like, again, counterintuitive, but it's so true, man. That's why I was on a call yesterday and someone said, they asked me what my core values were. And one of them is generosity. And I was like, I think it's important to be generous in all ways, but even with your team, like be generous because it also creates this like loyalty. You're creating like a band, right? Like you guys are like becoming together and aligned, if you're all like feeling like you're adequately, or like you're getting your fair share and then some, you're like, oh, sweet, let's go do another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's such a important piece of it. And it's funny because you do, it is kind of counterintuitive as you mentioned it before, giving up business for freedom actually probably will grow the business in a lot of ways and also give you the freedom if you're intentional about it, where a lot of people get stuck in it and they just get stuck in the business and they sometimes get in too deep or they need too much control. So I mean, yeah, like that's, what was kind of like the main thing that let you feel confident moving to Spain while still managing all of this? I know the team, but what was there a specific point where you're like, I need to do these things, get these things in place, and then I can go? Or was it just like a full send?
No, I mean, because there was some time leading up, right? Like as we're leading in, you're getting the visas ready, you're finding a place to live. I mean, moving abroad is especially with kids, there's a lot to it, right? You're like finding a school, you're finding a car, it's not like a surprise to anybody. And so again, I don't really want to take credit because it's not like I put a lot of pieces in place. It was more just clear communication, coming back to what we said before. Like I was really clear with the team. I'm going to move to Spain for at least a year. So we are now on our 2nd year. We have a 3-year visa. I'm just being extremely transparent with people. Like I'm moving to Spain. Here's about the amount of time that I can spend working. And like, I would love for you to continue doing your job in its capacity. And it's going to be a little different in X, Y, and Z. So I don't know that I like put a lot of pieces in place other than just like clear communication. And was like, then it wasn't a surprise to anybody.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, to Spain? Well, I thought you were like leading this team,
Yeah.
And then if you have this clear communication more of like, this is like a dream for me and my family. By the way, I want to support you in your dream too. What is your dream? What would you like to do so that we can support you? Like that, then you're like, oh, then people kind of get their juices flowing like, oh, sweet. I would like to, whatever. Everyone has a different dream, right? The other thing I'll say before we move on to the next subject, because I want to say this too, like sometimes, like, here's a good example. Like when I was in Colorado, I would go on a mountain bike ride almost every day. And it would take like in total probably 2 hours. And I had a friend who was like, dude, you're crazy. Like you're cutting out 2 hours of your work hour for like a mountain bike ride. But not only one, to like make me work better. I always say this, like you can work better in the time before and after a ride for sure. Because one, you're like looking forward to the ride, and after the ride, you're juiced. The other thing is on that ride, I swear is the place I found my best ideas or like solved a problem I couldn't solve. Like I'd be out riding and I'm like, oh, that's it. Like it would just come to me. And so sometimes again, it's counterintuitive. It's just like that, like take the time, take the space. A lot of times it'll move your business forward rather than just like grinding and eating at your desk. And there's a time and a place for that. Don't get me wrong. I like to work hard, but like, I think you'd be better to grind for 4 hours, take a good break of whatever activity you like, come back with like fresh mind, you'll get more done in 6 hours than you would in 8 if you took the time to exercise or do whatever you like to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the school system like in Spain?
Our kids go to international school, so it's actually quite similar to British school. It's pretty funny. Like for us, it's funny just as foreigners because they'll like teach them very, very unique British things. But it's really cool, man, because our kids are meeting kids from around the world. So like it's an international school, and like there really are like 60 countries represented in this small school. So it's quite similar. It's pushed back a little. School hours 9 to 4. But it's actually quite similar curriculum. So appreciate you asking. That's awesome.
No,
It's
yeah,
been
I
fun
mean, it's
for
just kind
us.
of an interesting piece that I imagine that a lot of people listening to this, their goal is to be able to travel. Most of them, or a lot of them, probably have kids. So I think that the school system is a really, interesting piece that I think is no one really knows about it. So yeah, like if there's like one
Yeah, I
thing,
didn't.
if there's one
Yeah.
thing that, you've learned or that you could say about, taking that jump, and if you're stuck on that jump because of the family or kids, do you think it'd actually be better to take the jump because of them?
I mean, again, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but from my perspective, there's very few things in the world that broaden your horizon and your mind like travel. Like when you see how other people live around the world, it opens your mind to so much more than just like food. Like, and don't get me wrong, I love food, but like it's more of other people live and think and act like this, and other cultures do it this way and it works, or maybe it doesn't work, from your perspective. It just opens your mind to like this whole new realm. So from my perspective, travel might be the most valuable thing you can give yourself. And so if I can give that to my kids now, yeah, in my opinion, if you have kids, to give them any travel, even to Mexico, is a wonderful, wonderful gift that you can give to them. So I'm a little biased, as you can tell. I put a huge emphasis on travel, and not because I want to like tick the box of, oh, I've been to Germany now. More like, let's go see what it looks like here. What does the food taste like? How do people treat you? How do they treat each other? How does the train system work? Like, how do you get on a train? What are other languages sound like? Well, how do you say this in that language? Like, just so much cool stuff that you learn about other cultures and then inevitably about yourself as you do that. And travel, a lot of times, like part of travel is like things go wrong. Like you're solving again, like a weird problem. Like, oh, whoops, we missed our train and we're in the middle of nowhere. Now what do we do? That is like, okay. And then you realize like people around the world are awesome. Like really, if I see
Mhm.
someone in distress at a train station, I'm like, hey, can I help you? And that happens to us too. Like people see you with kids and you're lost and it's raining and you're like, and then people come to you like, hey, can I help you? Like that's so cool. Like stuff like that doesn't just happen in day-to-day life. So again, I get really excited talking about travel. I think it's incredibly important, but if you can afford it, I also know like, I don't like the word privileged, but I also know it's a privileged position. Not everyone around the world can travel. So if you have the ability, take it. That's my perspective.
Yeah. No, I love that. All right. So I want to close out. I want to ask you a question. If your kids could inherit one trait from you that had nothing to do with real estate, what would it be and why?
Yeah, that was easy for me. Like I say, at least weekly, like kindness is the most important thing. My parents probably did this for me, so I'll just give them the credit. But like being kind is probably up there amongst my most important traits that I could request from them, right? So, I don't care what they do for work. I really don't. I don't care if they're rich. I don't care if they make money. I don't care. I just want them to be happy. But then more than that's cliche. More importantly, I want them to be kind to other people. So like, if I can pass that one bit on and they turn out to be kind people, that would be a huge win.
Isn't it? All right, Eric. If somebody wants to, invest in one of your deals, check out your community, get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Brian. Thanks for letting me plug it. My website for the deals is wildoakcapital.com. And then if they want to learn about the community, learn about how to do multifamily, it's become kind of a passion to teach it. So that's a separate website. That's ericnelsoncoaching.com. So check that out. Appreciate you kind of letting me throw it out there because I do love teaching people about it. I think it's a really cool tool to learn how to
Yeah.
do real estate.
Yeah, I think it's important people that are actively living it. Like you scaled a company, you also are traveling, you care about the family life. I think people like that should have a platform to help other people do it. So I appreciate it,
Oh,
man.
thanks. Appreciate that.
Well, thanks for coming on today, dude. There's so much in there that I hope people get value out of, and hopefully, if one person travels because of what you said, it's a win. So
I
I
completely
appreciate it,
agree.
man.
If nothing else, yeah, this has been my honor. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. All right, thanks, guys. I will see you on the next episode.
That's it for this episode of the Builder Nation podcast. If it gave you something to think about, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's leveling up. Until next time, keep building.